members. Welcome to a very special evening with a very special guest. We have the fortune of having Mr. Dhaneshwar Damry, Junior Minister of Finance, Government of Mauritius. A special welcome to members of the press and also some of our esteemed guests. It's indeed a great pleasure, Mr. Damry, to invite you to IBC. We know it is very, what you call early times of your assignment. You must be pretty busy trying to formulate policies for looking at Mauritius in 2025 and the way ahead. We are indeed very delighted to have you in the Indian Business Council. I know you are to an extent familiar. Thank you for that. In fact, I think Mr. Damry doesn't require introduction, but I need to do that formally. He's a trained barrister from UK and has a Triumph EMBA from NYSU Stern, as well as from London School of Economics and HEC Paris. He has successfully launched several innovative startups, especially in the area of financial service, fintech, as well as in the technology side. He was recently elected from the constituency number 8 in 2024, and of course holds a major position in the government. His deep understanding of technology, fintech, I think possibly couldn't have come at a good time, particularly when the world is changing. We are having AI coming in a big way, and I think perhaps fortunes of island nations like Mauritius possibly can be engineered that way also. Thank you for being here. Honourable Mr. Damry, in fact, the Indian Business Council was established about 4 years back. We have a very unique set of members. In fact, I think we are possibly very unique in the sense we have the experience of India, very deep experience of India. We have the experience of Mauritius, as also many of our members have experience of Africa. Amongst us, we have leaders from large Indian corporates, large Mauritian corporates, entrepreneurs, and quite a few senior officials from local and global companies. In fact, we all are very committed for the India, Mauritius and Africa business. In fact, we believe that Mauritius can be truly a gateway to Africa from the point of view of, particularly with this South-South diplomacy as well as South-South economic policies that India is pursuing. We want to be part of that. In fact, our Business Council also, to become much more effective, we have partnerships with MCCR. We have also with the PhD Chamber of Commerce, with Madras Chamber of Commerce, and recently we signed with the South Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Our focus is now with the smaller chambers of commerce, because we find they are far more interested to come and do business in Mauritius as well as into Africa. Mr. Damry, we are looking forward to listening to your thoughts and government roadmap. Thank you for your time. I know you have been extremely busy, but thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me for a warm round of applause for Mr. Damry.
Namaskar. So, Mr. Suresh Nanda, President of the Indian Business Council. Mr. Somdat Arya, thank you for having us in your premises, although I'm very familiar with it. Thank you. Dear friends, I think it gives me great pleasure today to address the Indian Business Council. And on my way here, I was thinking what I would share with you. So, okay, I think you all heard the Prime Minister in his address of the State of the Economy. We don't need to repeat the legacy that the previous government has left us with. You all are aware that we need a very serious fiscal consolidation plan and reforms agenda to rebuild and consolidate the macroeconomic stability of this country. And I think with members of the IBC, I would rather talk about opportunities between Mauritius and India. So one of the first, I see a lot of people from the services sector here, financial services. So I'll begin with financial services. So you all know that the India-Mauritius DTA was the most advantageous DTA that we used to have for foreign direct investments into India. But unfortunately, due to the previous government, that is no longer the case. Now you have other countries who rank more favorably than the India-Mauritius DTA. So we have to see, because the financial services sector accounts for nearly 15% of our GDP, and we have an established industry segment, we have to see how we can grow the financial services sector. And I think that we should diversify from tax arbitrage more towards a transaction platform in a way. And the reason I'm sharing that with you here today is because India is really racing ahead in fintech and the digital economy. So whenever I go to Bangalore or to Bombay, Mumbai or Delhi, or Hyderabad, these are the cities I normally go to, Calcutta once in a while too. So you go to all the coffee shops and you see the number of startups that are sitting there, so vibrant. However, in Mauritius, this is not the case. And I'll say something, sometimes I'm too blunt, but wherever you've had people of Indian origin go to a country, a foreign country, they normally do very well in the business out there. And Mauritius is probably one of the few, maybe the only country in the world where people of Indian origin have been to and are here for a long time, and we don't have a thriving entrepreneurial Indian business community. Of course we have the PSUs, that's okay, but I'm not talking about the PSUs at the moment. I'm talking about the entrepreneurs, the Indian entrepreneurs. So why are they not in Mauritius? What does Mauritius not have that other countries have? What should Mauritius do more to attract Indian entrepreneurs to this country? So these are the kinds of, I think the way we'll structure this today, if you don't mind, is that I'll share a few thoughts, but then I'd rather have a conversation. We can talk to each other. I can learn more from you guys about what you think we could do better for India and Mauritius trade to increase. So that's one, the financial services sector and the digital sector. A lot of the times we talk about Mauritius being a gateway to Africa for India. But does India really need Mauritius to go to Kenya or to some other country? So that's the second question I'm putting to you. If not, then we need to really look at the positioning of Mauritius with regards to India. And here I think about Dubai. Let's take the UAE. And when you look at the UAE, you look at the thriving Indian business community in the UAE. Just recently, a few years ago, UAE managed to move a fair bit of the Antwerp diamond community to Dubai. I think you will know that. But what did they do for them to gain this? Now, why was Mauritius not in the race? So what does Mauritius need to do to be able to move like business communities? When I talk about community, I'm not talking about Indian or French or whatever, like the diamond community or the pharma community. What does Mauritius need to do to attract the Indian diamond community or the Indian pharma community to Mauritius? So these are the sorts of things that we at government are interested in learning about, because this is a very growth-friendly government. We mean business. We are action-oriented, and we will do everything to facilitate trade and investment between Mauritius and countries that will bring FDI into this country. India has traditionally been our number one cultural, our number one historical, and now our number one economic partner. There's a lot of investments from India into Mauritius, especially into infrastructure investments. And I'd just like to touch on one thing here, and I commend the SBI for financing. I think your latest infrastructure project was on water, for financing some water projects in Mauritius when we all know about the water crisis that is going on in this country. So thank you. Now, what do we need to do to bring more investments into water projects in Mauritius? What do we need to do to bring more investments into renewable energy into Mauritius? And since I'm speaking to the finance world, what about green finance? What about blue finance, green carbon, blue carbon? So India has a very sophisticated financial services industry. What can we do to bring this sophistication into Mauritius? Why is it not here? My feeling is that we are still where we were many, many years ago. And in the meantime, countries like Rwanda have moved way ahead in Africa as compared to Mauritius. So I'm putting a question to you guys today from the financial services industry. What does Mauritius need to do to attract financial services sophistication into this country? We need to develop our financial services industry further. So that's my first question to you. My second question to you is, what do you think we need to do to attract more entrepreneurs, private sector entrepreneurs from India into Mauritius? We thank the PSUs for being here. We need you. We are not saying anything otherwise. But what about the private sector entrepreneurs into this country? How do we do that? So this is my second question to you. And my third question to you is, how do we allow, for instance, you have the gift city in Gujarat, and you have our financial services sector here. So how do we increase collaboration between the existing financial services sector and the gift city? Because clearly we are competitors today. So how do we become collaborators from competitors? So these are the three direct questions I put to members of the Indian Business Council on the sector, on the financial services sector. I'd also like to touch on one more sector, the blue economy. Because I understand that India has about 7,500 square kilometers of economic maritime zone. Mauritius has 2,000 square kilometers. So roughly about 30% of what India has. And India's blue economy, although nascent, contributes about 4% of India's GDP. Whereas I can't even think about what Mauritius blue economy contributes to our GDP today. So what can we learn from India's blue economy? What can we take, which valuable lessons can we take from you, so that even Mauritius, at least the blue economy of Mauritius, contributes to about 1%, 2%, 3%. We need to start. Then I move to a sector which has been at the core of India's government for the past few years, and it is at the core of our government also. agri-industry. We want to be able to eat what we produce. Now, India is very successful at looking at its farmers, at upgrading its farmers. So what lessons can we take from there so that we can eat what we produce in Mauritius? The agri-industry contributes 2.9% only of Mauritius GDP today. 2.9%. So that is not good enough. I'm not even saying, we have a dream, we have a vision. Why can't we become net exporter? But I know it's not realist at the moment. At least, how can we increase our self-sufficiency in the agri-industry? So we have a lot. Of course, another drive for this country is the digital economy. We want to digitize the whole of Mauritius. We want to digitize our entire services. Now, to do that, in my humble opinion, we need startups. Now, how can we make Mauritius an attractive destination for Indian startups? So these are the sort of ideas that I would like to bounce with you. And I'm here to learn. Maybe you hear that very rarely from a politician from the previous government. But this government, we are very growth friendly. We are very open to dialogue. We want to learn from our partners. And we are restructuring the EDB, which is very important, whose only mission during the previous mandate was to go on overseas missions. But this time they need to do some actual work. We want to learn from our business partners, our business collaborators, our business stakeholders, so that we actually end up doing something. So that when in 5 years, when you invite me again, hopefully, maybe in the same capacity or in a different capacity, but as a member of this government, I'm able to say that on the 10th of February 2024, we were in this room, we talked about this, and these are the achievements we made. And as a result of these achievements, we contributed X% to the GDP. So this is the kind of government that you have with you at this moment. So I think these are the kind of thoughts, insights that I'd like to share with you. And now I'll sit there, well, stand here, it's better. And I'd like to hear from you guys if you have any questions for me. Thank you. Yes.
You can have a seat here.
That's all right. I'd rather stand.
Minister, thank you for your thoughts.
Yes.
One of the problems that most entrepreneurs face here is connectivity. Especially if you look at Africa. In fact, from 2 weeks from now, I have to go to Rwanda. For a one-day trip, I have to spend 5 days. Now, that is something which I think you really will have to look at.
Yes. One of the economic drivers, one of the economic enablers for this government will be connectivity. And when I talk about connectivity, it's port connectivity, it's aerial connectivity, it's digital connectivity, and it's soft connectivity also, international relations. So connectivity is at the core of our agenda, and point noted, we'll look into it.
Thank you so much for your thoughts again. You asked why are there not many entrepreneurs coming to Mauritius. Mauritius is a very small market. And so I think things have to be pretty lucrative for them to come here. For them to sort of, compare to the vast market in India, which is a very tiny market here, unless you're offering them something, would they be interested? Would they be interested in coming? And also, I'll just give you an example of Singapore. Singapore was in terms of size and all that, not much different from Mauritius. But look at Singapore and now where we are in comparison to Singapore. And the reason why they have done is basically they made Singapore the hub for the region. Okay? And that's what we're looking at, basically, make Mauritius the hub for the African region. So all the major companies would come and set up the businesses here, and then basically do their businesses around Africa. So company or government has to offer something very, very lucrative. I mean, as far as the taxes are concerned, obviously initially when we first came here, the taxes were pretty low. But I think they're not really comparable anymore. With COVID coming in and a lot of taxes, we have to pay a lot of levies and all that. So I think government has to make something very, very, very useful, lucrative for entrepreneurs to come in here.
Yes, one of the things we'll definitely do is to streamline our taxes. I think the previous government was a consumption and taxation-led economy, whereas we're a production, investment, innovation-led economy. That's our drive. But it's good you asked, like, we have to make something lucrative for Indian entrepreneurs to come here. And that is what I have come to discover from you, or at least to discuss with you. Because you are the entrepreneurs, the Indian entrepreneurs who are here. I'm not an Indian entrepreneur here, but yes, I forgot to disclose one of my interests is I hold an OCI. So I'm quite familiar with India. But what I want to learn from this crowd here today is what is this value proposition that will make Indian entrepreneurs come to Mauritius. At the end of the day, I understand one thing. Business is about profitability. It's about purpose, of course, but at the end of the day, if it's not profitable, then there's no point of coming here. Now, that's one kind of business. The other business, in startups, you have valuation-driven business. Even if you're not profitable, but your valuation goes up, it's very good. But I think for Mauritius, valuation-driven is very difficult, because if you look at the past 10 years, name me one startup that did well in this country. I mean, do we even hear the word startup in the past 10 years? I don't know. So I think one of the things that we could do, and maybe a call to action that I'll give to you guys, is come up with suggestions about the positioning of this country, about the value proposition of this country, and write to us officially. Discuss with us, talk to us about it. Because we also want to attract Indian entrepreneurs here.
You, sir, please. In addition to what Mr. Tony is doing, can the new government cannot think for some tax holidays for the new units? Because I have seen in Dubai, they are in DFC, they are giving 50 years tax holiday. So if some new startup from India is supposed coming, they need to get certain benefits out of that. I think for the new units, bank should think something from tax holiday perspective.
Yes, this is something that we are thinking about, and of course, as Mauritius, we have the OECD and all these rules. But yes, we need to find out tax benefits definitely rank one. But I don't think tax benefits on its own will attract startups here. We need more than that. So that's what I've come to learn.
I think we have to benchmark ourselves against competition. If you really look at Singapore, I mean, of course now Singapore has become a little tougher. I remember I was in Dubai about 10 years back, and we had an inter-IM group, and I think the Singapore consulate used to come and say, guys, move to Singapore, you will get a residence permit, and then also I think in terms of citizenship very quickly. I think what Mauritius lacks, particularly for younger people to come, one is that it doesn't have a clear guideline in terms of certain rights. Even the children born here do not get citizenship. I think this is one factor. I'm sure there are a lot of youngsters over here who can possibly talk about that. But more than that, I think, okay, connectivity is an issue, but what we should really do here, small issues which can be easily tackled. One of the things that Mauritius has that the spouses cannot work. And think of a youngster who comes. The spouse today is also willing to work. Not that he's going to take away a job. He might do something on his own. I think this sort of facilitation is required. And I think Mauritius possibly, and one area I would also say, I think is a bit of a suggestion. India is hot in May and June. Indians want to come to the southern hemisphere. Mauritius is one of the best destinations. I don't know why Mauritius prices itself so much out of the range of typical Indian customers. I'm talking about the middle class Indian customers. that, or maybe Mauritius doesn't want them maybe. I think, and May and June I know are fairly low seasons over here. I think some of these innovative thoughts can possibly help. I'm not very sure whether they really want that segment or not, so that's why I can't really very clearly comment on that. This is one thought. There are of course many more thoughts, but I'll add
Yes, of course. So on the like welcoming side, permit side, I was at the South African Chamber of Commerce a few weeks ago, and we got this. So we are looking into that. We'll have to look into it, because when an investor comes into this country, he or she is not alone. He or she comes with a family. So we understand that. So we have to make it attractive for the family to be here also. On the question of May, etc., I understand that, because in my own family, my wife's family, we've had a lot of weddings, destination weddings from India in Mauritius during the period May to July, August. And some, a few weddings have come here where they actually fill the hotels that have low seasons at the time. But of course, this is something that will look into the tourism industry. We need to attract more tourists, especially during the low season.
And the cost of flights have to be comparable with other competing destinations.
Of course, we know we are competing with other jurisdictions, so we have to be competitive. If you're not competitive, so be it. That's our loss. Yes.
Thank you so much for your thoughts. You touched base on the financial sector and from the offshore sector. And practically what we are facing here, we have a management company. And since Jaishankarji rightly pointed out that the connectivity is a problem, but I'll just share a real issue. EDB and the government, obviously the previous government, they have put down the threshold is 22,500 for the OP people, which solves the problem of the spouse working. So we can connect there. But the thing is, if you want a professional to come to Mauritius from India, 22,500, this dropped down, but nobody is interested to come in. Second thing, even if they come, the youngsters, if we call youngsters here, even on 30,000 scale or 35,000 rupees scale, it's a real practical problem. The cost of living in Mauritius is so high, they end up saving nothing. For the expats, honestly, the prices, the rental is so high. It's minimum like 2 bedroom is 25,000. As soon as they know this is the expat, okay, they'll charge 25,000. I'm sure many of the expats agree with me here. It's real, I'm telling you. And then they say that we end up, and then you have to put your grocery, your petrol and everything. So they end up saving nothing. So to call on youngsters here in Mauritius, in the financial sector, we need to, it's not about pay scale anymore, it's about the things which is like for the day-to-day use, the rental and the cost of living, which is very high. So that is where Mauritius is lacking. Connectivity again is an issue. If they come here and if they want to visit their family once in a year also, it becomes very challenging for them because the prices for the airfare is very high. We tried calling many tax professionals here, accountants from India, because we don't find youngsters here, stable youngsters. They want to really focus in their career. It's very difficult to find. I've been taking interviews for last 2 months, but I've not seen any youngster who is, they're keen to work, but they're not willing to spend. They have just one motto: they finish the university or they finish the internship and they'll go to France or they go to another country. Whenever I see a youngster, I say your country needs you. You have to build your base here. So expecting an Indian expats to come here, I think we need to educate the youngsters who are in Mauritius already. Mauritius youngster, I would say, we need to encourage, we need to educate them that your country needs you. And they need to stay here because the GDP problem and the cost of living problem is not going to solve in a day. So that's the real problems. For the advocates, for the lawyers we need, nobody is willing to come on that. If they come on a higher scale, yeah, if you can afford, they are willing to come here. But these are the real issues. My question to you, you have asked IBC members many questions. I recently heard Mr. Sitaraman in the conference last week only. He emphasized on that Mauritius needs approximately $6 billion investment by 2030. I want to hear your thoughts on that how Mauritius is going to attract that $6 billion into the country. That too, he emphasizes on the renewable energy and sustainability projects. what the bank's taking initiative, like what the Bank of Mauritius is thinking about it, and how Mauritius government is thinking about to getting those investment in the country to make.
Is it your-
I have only one question to you. I only answered your question.
In your statement, but I'll tell you, I'll give you some news, you know.
Yeah.
Like you said, rental costs 25,000,
Yes.
cost of living. The news is that it doesn't apply only to expats. Unfortunately, the previous government made sure that it applies to Mauritians also. And that's why the people voted for change.
Another thing, the CSG is applied for the resident of Mauritius, not just the citizen of Mauritius. So that is another drawback. Having the 2% CCR levy, which also decreased for the corporates to come here, because every GBC, you know that, you are from the financial sector, you are heading ministry, you know the GBC is also paying 2% tax, so 15 plus 2 is become 17%. So we are losing out there as well. The clients gets bugged up that, you know, we are end up paying so much tax which was not there. CSG, we are a resident, we are not citizen of Mauritius, but we are still paying CSG, which is not recoverable for us.
Yes. So, yeah. So, and then they have the devaluation of the rupee, but that's something we are addressing on a macroeconomic basis. And it is the duty, the mission of this government to ensure that prices go down as quickly as we can, and that our rupee becomes a bit, you know, stronger. So that's the duty of this government. Now, you talked about 6 billion. It's actually 6.5 billion.
Yeah, I know 6.5 billion.
It's actually
I thought-
6.5 billion, and it's what appears to be the sums required for Mauritius to kind of complete or at least invest more in climate projects, if I can call it that way. And again, I know this is not a crowd where I talk about politics, but I have to remind you, like, this sum has not been arrived at today. This sum arrived at a few years ago. And what the previous government did, the central bank came up with a framework on green finance. And then I think you had one local bank that came up with guidelines on green finance based on the framework that the central bank came out with. So this is what the previous government did. They did no action in renewable energy. And the share of renewable energy in the energy mix fell from 22% to 17%. This is just for you to get a background. When the share of renewable energy has to go up. So now what's happening in this country, you have a lot of DFIs. You have the World Bank on one side, you have the AFD, l'Agence Française de Développement, and then you have the UK government task force. If I can say, 3 different agencies that are very keen to assist the government of Mauritius to kind of meet its climate agenda. Now, out of this 6.5 billion US, 2/3 will come from DFIs, but the 1/3 is expected to be coming from local sources. So clearly, this government is engaging very proactively with the private sector, which the previous government did not do. So we are engaging with the private sector so that we could mobilize the 1/3 required to be able to then leverage that 1/3 with the DFIs to mobilize the 6.5 billion US that is required for this government and for the people of Mauritius to meet our climate agenda. Water is a serious issue today. You know, if we are to attract foreign investments, if we are to attract foreign investors into this country, you can't come to this country where you don't get water, where you wake up in the morning and then you don't have water to shower. So this is unacceptable. We have disaster risk, which is also, you know, we have to look, floods, etc. And you touched on a sensitive subject, which is ESGs, environment, social, and governance. And you will know that ESGs impact macroeconomic. So ESG risk impact our macroeconomic stability. Unfortunately, the previous government did nothing on ESGs. But this government, we are climate champions, starting with the Prime Minister himself. We have a very climate conscious government. and we are working together as one team, as I say, Team Mauritius, to ensure that at least we start meeting our climate agenda the soonest. And at the level of the Ministry of Finance, we are focusing aggressively on DFIs to mobilize green finance. You know, I don't know much where we are right now in terms of green carbon, blue carbon, but we are learning, and I'm very confident that we will get there soon.
We really look forward to see the development in coming years, maybe coming months,
Yes,
and wishing you all the best.
thank you. And you know, I'll just touch on one thing on that. You know, India has this solar alliance. So I think we should bring them to Mauritius. You know, I know companies in India. I was speaking with one company, they told me, you know, we've just completed 15,000 megawatt, and now our roadmap is to do 4 gigawatt. So, you know, maybe 100, 200 megawatts are not of great interest to us. That's also a reality. But to be able to meet the climate agenda of this country, we need, like, maybe from India itself, we need companies that not only bring the technology, but who can also mobilize finance. And in India, you have a lot of companies who can do that. And maybe this is one of the areas of potential G2G collaboration between our two governments.
Sir, as you mentioned regarding the startup in the beginning,
Yes.
so as we have a entrepreneur family, so it's very important in Mauritius when we are talking about entrepreneurship. The first thing which we want to have the connectivity for the products. Now India and Mauritius, as everybody knows, export and import is a lot happening over there, but everything in Mauritius is imported by India. But the connectivity for the importation is very lagging now, as from Velogic also they are here. And we are facing the problem since quite a long, after the COVID it's happening here, that the containers are lying in India, but when they come here, they don't get a place over there. So containers move again back to South Africa, they are coming back here. Port is not working, there's a public holiday, there's a Saturday, there's a Sunday. And to do the business on a right track, it need to work 24 hours, especially the port is concerned, because otherwise everything is delayed. I am from the background where we need to have the goods on the time-to-time basis. Like recently the December finish for the New Year. I know a lot of my entrepreneurs, those who told us that container का आना था, but अभी सब कुछ delay हो गया है और अब जनवरी में पहुंच रहा है container. And I think a lot of people face that the same thing. And it happens not only previously from India to Mauritius, it is 7 to 9 days of sailing. Now the same thing happens, like abhi to 21 days be it's a dream. It's happening in 1 month of time. So I think this part should be also tackled by the government to government basis, because it is a must thing if we are talking about in terms of the importation or even for the startup. Why I will come and do the business here where the goods are getting so much of delayed, because production is there, then the expiry of the product is also there. तो किसी की यदि 6 महीने 8 महीने या 1 साल की एक्सपायरी है, वो तो 3 months is gone. In all of these cases, then it will come here, then there's so much of other processes are there. So first thing, definitely I need to look into it, ki what the new government can take place, where we can connect with the, there are 3 shipping lines, MSC, MERS or CMA, CGM, they are the main people those who are working to Mauritius. If we can talk to them that they can have the direct shipping again to Mauritius, so that we don't get the delays in the shipments, people can get on time, and the port can work a little late. ये बहुत बड़ा एक challenge है, which definitely need to look into it, and the capacity of that. And another thing, I just, as Meenakshi ma'am also emphasize on this thing, the CSG. We have a lot of expats working with us. We are not against the CSG, we are paying for that. But at the end, the expert who came from India, he's telling us that मैं क्यों उसको pay करूँ? मेरे को क्या फायदा है? And like I'm talking about the layman language, that we are paying, but at the end, for what? Either it's okay for the OP people, those who are getting high paid, $5,000 for $10,000, it's fine for them. But when we come to about the 30,000 of a slab, they feel like, I didn't get a contract for this in India, I am here for making, out of some kind of thing. So the local employment rules also applies to them, which is somewhere not fair to the business people, because, they have some separate arrangements with the local, basically the staff in India, especially I'm talking about it there. So if something can be done on this also. I'm sure startup will love to come to Mauritius and do the businesses here if we make it a bit more business friendly out here.
Yes, so I'll answer one by one. I think the fourth one, yeah, we understand it. We take note and we'll have to act on it. By the way, this is a government that works 24/7. So I'm sure that all government agencies must follow in the footsteps of the government and work 24/7 also. So this is something that will look at port efficiency, port productivity. Definitely that's at the top of our agenda. On your question of CSG, you know, like we have the Workers' Rights Act, and this was one of the questions on the reverse side of it. Like a lot of employers were saying, why should we pay foreign workers who are here on a 1-year contract or 2-year contract a 14-month bonus? So this was a similar question, if I can flip it the other way. But the CSG is an indirect form of taxation that the previous government put. So they could not raise income tax or VAT. So they used a subterfuge to increase taxation indirectly, because that's all they knew what to do, consume and tax. But this government will have to relook at all the policies and make it investor friendly. So I'll be honest, I don't know what we'll do yet, but we'll have to relook at them, and that's why it's good to voice out your concerns, so that we know what your concerns are. And this is not something that only you are saying it. A lot of people are saying that to us. And you know, on the question of startup, I'd like to say one thing. Many years ago, and even now, when I go to India, everything is on an app. Yeah? If you don't have an app, you can't do anything in this country anymore. And I have so many people, like today, there were 2 people who came from World Bank, on digital actually. And they told me when they landed at the airport, they took their phone and they were looking at an app to order a taxi. And they kept waiting for the app to come. So Mauritius has a, you know, although on paper we are number this, number that, but in reality we have a lot to do. And I do not know why more Indian startups are not coming to Mauritius. I can't put my finger on the pulse why this is not happening. We need to be able to attract at least, I mean, if you go to Dubai, there are so many Indian startups who are there at the moment. Even if you go to Rwanda, to Kenya, to Uganda, to Tanzania, to South Africa, so many Indian startups are going there. But why are they not coming to Mauritius? That's really what I want to learn from this part, if I could today.
If I can react to that quickly, is that you don't get enough manpower to work for you. I have stayed in Dubai so long. You can get people very easy. Kenya also is fairly, I mean, you get decent amount of local talent to work for you. I think Mauritius has that challenge. I have been in the financial sector. I saw what it was to get a person of the right experience. I was handling international banking. Very difficult to get. I think this is a challenge. Being a small island, so I think possibly it has to look at few areas and excel in it. And I don't see a reason why Mauritius should not become a strong financial center. It had all the opportunities, but it's slowly losing out. I have seen, I came here in 2015, and now when I say 2025, over the years it is slowly losing out in terms of being a major financial center. I think that also needs to be looked at.
Yeah, you rightly said so. We have to reinvent our financial services industry, and we have to look at that.
You know, previously I think we were able to get a lot of people from India because I think they found Mauritius attractive in terms of either the taxes or whatever. Now the salaries in India have gone up so much that you are not able to attract people from India even. I'm like, you know, I was in Big Four, and for us to get people from India, and it's become a nightmare. Previously, you know, we used to sort of get. Previously, it was you know, when the occupation permit was 50,000, 60,000 or whatever. But even now, it is reduced to 22.5. We cannot get people because the Indian salaries have gone up so much, and the standard of living in India is much better than here now.
I think one of the other reasons that countries hesitate or don't really come here. I think the framework or the guidelines are not very clear, on how to start up something. You mentioned about an app for looking for a taxi. We don't know whether we can have something like an Uber. The minute somebody talks about, getting something like an Uber, it's like, no, you can't bypass the local taxis. You have to involve the local taxis. And the minute you talk about local taxis, the whole Uber model doesn't work. It only works if you have, youngsters, individuals, non-taxi people who are going to actually, get onto the program to get you a ride. So I think that's also a challenge on what's allowed, what's not allowed, whether there's a clear framework or guidelines to start something. So what are your thoughts on Uber in Mauritius?
Yes, well, I'll answer that. No problem. Look, one of the things that I've been trying to get to you is that for any startup that wants to be successful and make money and exists, Mauritius is not a market, cannot be a market. So I think what I've been trying to get at, that's what I was trying to get from the room, is that the value proposition of Mauritius does not lie in Mauritius being a market. The value proposition of Mauritius lies in Mauritius being a platform. No startup from India would come to Mauritius for Mauritius as a market. I'm quite clear on that. I understand that. It's just too small, there's no scale. So what I've been trying to get out of this room today is like, how can we engineer the value proposition so that, you are either different, you're either first, or you're either niche. So speaking of Mauritius, I said that to the World Bank this morning. Speaking of Mauritius as a place where it's just like, how you speak in India, it is a massive market. But thinking of Mauritius along the same wavelength as we think of, like say, a market like India, or even a market like Kenya, which is part of the East African community, will not work. So we have to really position Mauritius. What is the position of Mauritius in the value chain? Where does Mauritius fit itself in the supply chain of, payments, for instance? So we have to be, this is a government that means business. That's why I think we have to be very focused. This government will not try to do everything and anything. This government will not promise everything and anything, because we know it doesn't work. This government will try to focus on our competitive advantages. This government will try to be niche. I'm talking about business here. To be different, to be first. This government will try to position Mauritius in such a way that will make it a compelling proposition for companies to use Mauritius. And this is what I've been trying to get out of this room today. How can we position Mauritius to make it attractive to Indian startups going into Africa? Or to Africa. Look, we are in Mauritius right now. So we have to think beyond India sometimes. How can we position Mauritius for African startups to leverage Mauritius, which is part of Africa, to do business with Africa? So to your question, for you birds, it's very complicated, but no one prevents an entrepreneur, a startup entrepreneur, to kind of, get few taxis together and set up an app. There's no such law that prevents it.
Well, I'll speak from the point of view of an entrepreneur who has tried to do something and failed in it in Mauritius. And you're aware, what we try to do. But rather than focusing on what went wrong, I just want to, come to the point that you were making. I think Mauritius needs to focus on some niche areas, especially in the financial services sector. I think we have lost big time on the fund side. Funds have moved out of Mauritius, that's for sure. And jurisdictions like Abu Dhabi and Dubai are gaining ground, whereas we should have led from the front. But we have not innovated enough. We have not actually tried to hold on to the funds that were there in the first place. forget about getting new ones. I don't know whether you're aware, I think if you look at the last 3 months, I think the fund flow, both inbound and outbound, has dried down completely. And this has also resulted in the FX, not being available in the local market. So I think Mauritius needs to focus on certain niche areas. One of them could be, and that's a suggestion from my side, and it needs to be looked at holistically rather than looking at in parts. So one of the suggestions is that we should focus on certain licenses which we have, but for which there are no takers. I'll give you an example. Investment dealer license. It's so popular globally, and it's gaining ground in Mauritius, but there are no takers. Just because none of the banks are keen to open bank accounts. Then you have, licenses for payment intermediary services. You take a license today, no bank is going to open an account for you. I mean, what's the point? And I'm telling you, if you focus on just the capital market operators here, you can bring billions of dollars. Just focus on payment intermediary services, accept the banks to open bank accounts for them and give them the cards, payment services, you get billions of dollars. But I don't know why nobody is focusing on it. So this is a suggestion from my side, that if you're looking at niche areas, please look at these areas. Happy to, discuss in detail what needs to be done, but, technology partners in capital market, I mean, the licensing holders who are issuing licenses to all the, CFD players, just give them tax holiday for 5 years. Just imagine, you can't even imagine the amount of money they will bring into the country. So I think somebody needs to just focus on these few areas. It will solve multiple problems. It will bring talent, it will bring forex, it will also, alleviate the position of Mauritius as an IFC of repute. That's my humble request. If the government can look into these things, I think it will do wonders for the country.
Yes, and this is one of the things I said earlier, that tax arbitrage is already here, but we have to look at transactions. Mauritius should become a transactions platform, and these are exactly the kinds of products that we have to look at, how we can make the Mauritius value proposition compellingly attractive to investors. Because remember, investors have choices. They can go to Malta, where there are approximately 400 PIS licenses, by the way, 400. So Malta has made payment a niche for Europe. They have the edge of PSD2, the PSD directives, where if you're registered in Malta, you can operate in the European Union. This is again some kind of passporting rights. Maybe Mauritius, as we used to have DTA, maybe we look into passporting into Africa. And the one thing that I would like to do is, how can Mauritius passport into the gift city? So this way, you have like, you start building value propositions. But I agree with you, and that's one thing that this government will look into.
Mauritius also needs to bring some stock exchange here, because that will be a big game changer in Mauritius to bring the economy at.
It's going to be a big economy. So I think I read somewhere that Mauritius is already doing the treaty with South Africa. I think you're trying to bring South African stock exchange into Mauritius. If this happens, or if any stock exchange, stock market, as rightly pointed out, it's going to be a big change.
But can I ask a question? Because what happened to Afghanex?
No, I'll just add.
I can't comment on that, but but Afrinex is doing well. They have certain companies registered here under Afrinex, but still you need, I guess, they're there.
But I'll build a perspective. If you really look at India, I think 1970, 80, the market hadn't really evolved that much. I think it really took up from the mid-80s onwards. I have seen from ICICI point of view, we've seen companies growing, valuations, so the small companies that we handle today are for $5 billion minimum. I think that is the power of the stock exchange. And in fact, today, African companies, I think all across Africa, there are a lot of companies who have done well. And I think to the best of my knowledge, there are 3 major stock exchanges. South Africa, Nigeria to an extent, in Kenya. I think Mauritius has the greatest ability to become a major stock exchange, and perhaps, I don't know, collaboration with which stock exchange, I'm not suggesting that. I think that's where, again, you will have the broking community coming, a lot of youngsters, and today with this, like internet broking and others, I think that can create a major change. And you don't need too many manpower also to run something like that.
So the question is, how do you attract the market makers?
We need to get the treaty done first.
I
I think Sora wants to say something. Since it's your world.
Thank you, Minister. It was really nice listening to your thoughts and all, and the way you approached it, saying that you want a solution. That's really heartening to see. See, I would like to just put a point, what we were discussing. We have seen the capital market in Mauritius has grown significantly, and what I mean by the capital market is the debt market. We have seen the equity side also and the debt side also. And what my little experience in Mauritius in 7-8 years interacting with the corporates and corporates who are doing business outside Africa, I think somewhere they feel that they get a comfort in the jurisdiction because we follow the English law, which is very primarily, it gets, even we have seen in the international court how things get settled. The capital market, we have a currency and trade can get settled, and there is a full flow of dollars and everyone. So how can we attract more financing in the local currency also? Similarly, we have seen TDB coming up and setting up shop here, and they have done almost 230 to 300 million types of fundraising. I think these are already there. Only thing is that somebody needs to tie it up and put it into the, as you rightly stated, put it into the stock exchange or attract more people. On the renewable side, I think there is tremendous scope. We discussed, and you also said that very clearly. But till now, we have only said possibly 2 renewable bonds which has been done, green bonds which has been done. How can we make people come up and raise these bonds actually? Or how can we push people to do it? In terms of your what you say or what we discussed or you pointed out about how can we attract Indian investors, I think Mauritius offers the best, or the most important thing Mauritius offers is the low tax rate. Any Indian entrepreneur who is working in India, unless they are having the SEZ benefit, they are probably paying corporate tax of over 30%. Here you get 15 plus 2% CSR, 2% on the green fund. So we are talking about 19%. I'm not getting in whether you will revise the tax or not, I'm not. But still there is a good benefit on that. South Africa pays a tax of 40%. We have seen a lot of South African investors actually looking into Mauritius actively. But possibly there is somewhere the regulations need to be revisited to attract these people. Real estate, what we have seen, we deal with the real estate companies. There was a big slowdown in the real estate sector in the last 1 year. For whatever reason, I'm not getting into that, but the investment or even the projects got delayed actually. Now, how we can incentivize these projects, or how this project can be kick-started, or maybe this can be fast-tracked, which can get us more investment into the country.
Yeah, so like this government is neither an economic operator nor a banker. So we are here to facilitate for entrepreneurs, for businesses. And to your question on real estate, I'm not sure what the answer is. But if you look at the FDI in this country in the past years, it has been totally skewed towards real estate, 70%, 80%. And this is good. We're not saying don't do real estate. Of course, carry on. But we need FDI in segments where the productivity of capital is much higher. And this is what is going to be our focus going forward, to attract FDI in the financial services sector. to attract FDI in the digital sector, to attract FDI in climate projects. So that is going to be our focus in terms of FDI. And when I said to begin with that we are neither an economic operator nor a banker, you see MIC just bought I don't know how many acres of land from Omnicade. That's exactly what we are looking to be doing. But government is here to facilitate. I say we are a growth-friendly government. So we will identify all the roadblocks in the real estate sector or in any sector and try to find sustainable solutions so that businesses can progress and move forward. Now to your question on the bond market, I must tell you, I met the chairman of the National Stock Exchange of India recently. And he was telling me that, yes, your DTA for equities is gone, in a way. But he told me you've got another opportunity, which no one is exploiting from Mauritius, is you have a great opportunity for the debt market. Well, I've been hearing about that, but no one is doing anything about this. I don't know. I haven't really heard the debt market into India through the Mauritius DTA at all. And this brings me to your question of the bond market. I really don't know what we need to do to make it more fluent, more attractive. Maybe if we can work more, maybe this is one of the aspects that we can exploit, the debt market through the existing DTA of Mauritius, and what this government, if this is an opportunity, a real opportunity, B, what is our competitive advantage when it comes to this, and C, what does this government need to facilitate in order to make it an attractive proposition. So I'll hear from you on that. And on the renewable bonds, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure at the moment. Maybe you can give us some more insights. And in fact, I'm meeting the DFIs more often. I'm trying to see from them what needs to be done for the renewable bond market. Maybe one of the ideas, maybe it's just it's just an idea. I mean, can Mauritius become a bond market for the green and blue economy for Africa? I don't know.
I'll just share my thought, but before that I'll just clarify on the real estate. What I meant was the GFAs which were there and the investors are already decided. I'm not talking about any new project. I'm just talking about existing projects where the GFAs are already there, but I think things have got slowed down significantly. People are willing to put in money or willing to invest, but I think the GFA approvals have slowed down a lot. What I meant by that, and whether it can be facilitated. It's not about anywhere the government needs to come up with new projects. The private sector doing the projects, but I think we can see more FDI coming in. But I absolutely in sync with your thought that there should be more FDIs coming in the financial services sector and the renewable energy sector. In terms of the bond market, I'll just share some figure. Today, Mauritius has almost 135 billion Mauritian rupee bond market, rated and listed. I'm not talking about the unrated or unlisted part. There might be something. In a way, we are talking about 25% of the borrowing of Mauritius is done through a bond market, which is even unheard of in certain bigger economies. Mauritius with a $15 billion economy, we are talking about $3.5 billion from the bond market. It's significant, and there is enough scope for Mauritius because, as you rightly stated, the presence of the DFIs. It can be a very easier route to raise funding through Mauritius because the DFIs, European DFIs, we have seen Propaco, KFW, DEG, is willing to invest through Mauritius because they somehow feel that the jurisdiction gives them the comfort. How can we use that as a stepping stone and maybe take the bond market to the next level? Even we have the bigger banks from, and we are talking about investors. Only thing we need to get, issuers are there, investors are there. How do we connect the gap? That's and if you ask me about my views on the green bond and blue bond, green bond there is enough opportunities there because renewable projects, what we understand and I discussed last time also, that Mauritius is planning to go 60% of the renewable energy by 2030. That's what was given by the government.
Previous
Unfortunately,
government.
previous government. Correct.
And they reduced the share of renewable energy.
Yes, and all those big megawatt projects which was put up, nothing has seen the light of the day. So how can we work even in India? As you pointed out that there are a lot of projects which have been set up in India. We have rated. In fact, we have rated some of the projects here also. We are rating, but we aren't seeing the volume which possibly can significantly come up, because we are seeing interest from the people who wants to set up the projects. This is possibly where the Indian solar manufacturers or Indian EPC contractors can be brought in, can be connected, can be seen that whether there is enough scope, and then the people who wants to set up can be given that push, whether it can be given a push by EDB or whether it will be the government. But I think there is enough opportunity. It is only needs to be tapped, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'll tell you what the real challenge of the government is here. You all know that our debt levels are quite high, and we have committed to Moody's to bring our debt levels lower. And in most cases, so how now state-owned enterprises have added the contingent liabilities of the state-owned enterprises have added tremendous pressure to national public debt. Now, when we embark on these climate projects, we must ensure, and this is relevant to your question also, we must ensure that these projects do not add to our sovereign debt.
I'll just have, put my thought on that. The government doesn't need to do anything. It's a private sector which is going to set up all these projects. We have seen in India mostly the private sector setting up the projects. I know CEB has been given the guarantee for all the 3 big projects, power sector projects, fossil fuel projects which was there, whether it's Omniken, whether it was Terra or Altio which was done 20 years back. But for a power project, why do you need a government guarantee?
So what you mean is that the private companies are kind of they build, they operate, and they sell.
Yes.
And CB just buys.
Yes, and the debt will be taken by the private companies. It has to be in a model of 80-20 or a 75-25 debt equity, whatever the power purchase agreement will be. And the power purchase agreement has to be tight enough, which can be used to repay the debt in a period of 18 to 20 years. It doesn't impact the national debt anyway.
And if the power purchase agreement is guaranteed by the government, I think the banks would be happy to finance.
No.
But this is exactly what I touched on. We cannot guarantee the IPPAs because then it adds to the sovereign debt.
Then CB has to guarantee.
But CB is a state-owned enterprise, so it adds contingent
No,
liability to the private debt.
CB, actually how it has worked here. In India, none of the state utilities guarantee a power purchase agreement. What has been done in Mauritius was the government has been guaranteeing that, okay? But then CB is not guaranteeing. CB is saying we will pay it. But CB is entering into an agreement for 20 years where they are going to pay it for 20 years. And they need.
This is good. I wanted you to come to that. I think we need to find the Indian companies or any other company that would be happy to enter renewable energy segment here without any guarantee from government or state-owned enterprises, which I believe has not been the case in the past.
Yeah, but I think not only Indian companies, a lot of Mauritian companies are also interested actually. They are
See,
discussing.
we need companies. Let's say if a company takes on a project of 100 or 200 megawatt, we need a company that can complete the project.
Yes. Yes.
Boom, in 1 year or whatever in the budget allocated, and honor its commitment in terms of supply to the state utility.
Thank you.
But from the perspective of the banker, I just want to mention that sometimes the bankers also do not look into the government guarantee. But you have to create that environment or the scope for the industry or the private players that after they are coming to any project, suppose this is a green project or a power generation project, where the country has to create that scope or the opportunity so that they can save. So the future projections of on the basis of the sale also, so the bank can also go and invest from that. In that case also in some in industry or some projects, also we never see for the government, correct? Bank can independently assess the scope. So the duty of the government is to create the scope for the particular industry.
And
That
this
they
is
can-
exactly what
They
this
can
government is going to do.
sustain, they can sustain.
This is exactly what this government is going to do.
I would like to comment on something which is against the trend of the discussion here. People have been saying, getting the manpower here, getting the people and all is very difficult, etc. and all, and it is quite difficult. I'm from the operations side, so I won't comment on the financial side. But what I've seen on the operations side is that, there is a big scope for productivity improvement by streamlining the processes and etc. and by reducing the amount of interconnections or the movements which take place. And I would say that work ethic and the work culture also is a very important factor in doing this thing. I see a lot of resistance to change, making all this thing, changing the processes, etc. But and would say that nearly, I would say, 25 to 50% improvement in productivity is easily possible, and that releases the manpower where all the other people and shortages can cover up. In fact, this is one of the places where I see where after implementing ERP, we require more manpower than what it was before.
See, my reply will be political, purely political. It is because it is political. I'll give you two examples. Someone talked about the port earlier. So when we looked at the World Bank report on port efficiency and MRA customs, I know they don't like it when I say that, is an essential part of port connectivity. And you know what? MRA customs ranked 90th out of some 130 countries. Now we've given them a KPI. This government is very different. We've given them a KPI, a mandate that they should go and improve and reach the top 50%. This is the mandate that this government is giving them. And like everyone talked about Mauritius. Earlier we used to rank first on the ease of doing business ranking in Mauritius, in Africa. Then the previous government happened. Then you know what happened? Now it's not the ease of doing business report anymore. It's called the Be Ready report that this government is starting to look at again. Mauritius came down to 4th and 5th in different positions, from first in Africa to 4th and 5th. So once again, this is a mandate, a KPI that we are going to give to the EDB, that Mauritius should become first in Africa again. And as you said, people are resistant to change, but rewind to November 2024, people did make the change happen. So this government, we are all change champions and will ensure that we'll honor the mandate that the people voted us for.
That's why I was saying that, particularly the systems and procedures in all government departments and everything, or in the type of the way the integrating it with the digital is very important, because that saves manpower which is easily utilizable. You do not need to then import or to do anything.
And the one more thing I'll tell you guys, this is like me speaking as a political, not as a political, as a Mauritian. This country, from sugarcane and rocks, became what it became as a result of the sweat and blood and labor of Mauritians.
Absolutely.
So Mauritians have been resilient. Mauritians have been productive. Now, why can't we create the environment for Mauritians to flourish again? Why do we need to rely on foreign labor all the time? And this is what this government is going to do. And one of my personal satisfactions will be if towards the end of our mandate, the Mauritians who have left Mauritius, they call their mother or father and say, we are coming home. That's going to be a personal satisfaction for me, when and if this happens.
I think even without coming back home, if there is a culture working hard, I think that's going to make a big difference. I had a personal experience. I was the head of HR as well as business for ING Vaishya Bank. It was ING took over this bank from Vaishya. It was a very traditional bank, and people were not working hard. I finally requested Nandan Nilekani, whom I knew personally, and since it was a Bangalore-based bank, I said, Nandan, you have to come and talk to our people,
tell them why not work hard. And Nandan really came after 6 months, because he was very busy, and came 6 months where around 1,000 people, he addressed them. And the mindset slightly changed. I think we need successful local entrepreneurs, successful people whom they will listen, so to tell them that it needs, I think the earlier generation got very hard on it. And I still see people who are in their 50s, 60s are working very hard. I think younger generation perhaps has become lazy. I don't know about the last 3-4 years. I don't have people reporting to me. But I think this is very important. I think they need to be told to work hard.
I also think, like, when we talk about entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial community, we should create opportunities for the local people also. I don't see that there are, I'll be frank here, so I don't see that there are, when you have a Mauritian, I think someone said that go to France. Who said go to France? You said go to France, yeah. So, you get the local Mauritian, his parents have taken loans and debts, they sacrificed themselves, they invested in the studies of the local Mauritian, he or she studied hard, they got grades, and then they look at the opportunities around, and they see maybe, if I go to Canada, this is what I get. If I go to Australia, this is what I get. If I go to France, this is what I get. Or even if I go to India, I know Mauritians who are going to work in India, by the way. So if I go to India, this is what I get. So I think it's also about the entrepreneurial community creating the opportunities for this generation to say, you know what, I can have a future in this Mauritius. And I'll be blunt. This is not something that only the government should be doing. I think the private sector have a duty towards that too. And I've said that to the entire private sector, investors, local and foreign alike. We have, the best assets that this country have are its manpower. And therefore we should create opportunities for the manpower to flourish together, government and private sector alike.
But when you are sending students from Mauritius to another country on scholarship, there has to be a cap. When you come back, when you study on the scholarship, you have to come back and serve your country for 5 years. It's there. But I think it's 2 years or 3 years you have to serve the country. In 5 years, they should realize that they have more opportunity in their own country. As I just mentioned, that whenever I see a young Mauritian, I say your country needs you. Why are you running to another country? Because they don't see the opportunities here. So when they come back in 5 years, when they're serving the country, they should look around and they should see, okay, no, I'm happy in my country, I'm happy with my family. So this kind of atmosphere, government or people should create.
See, the government will certainly do, and I think
Everybody.
And I think as far as the private sector is concerned, I think the private sector should move up the value chain. The value chain in the segment that they are in, so that the people, the local workforce, can find the opportunities that they are looking for here. What I will say, like I'm speaking to the financial services sector, and we know, I think, I don't know how many there are, 160 management companies now?
202, I guess.
202 management companies,
Yes.
and they all do the same thing.
They all do the same.
They all do the same thing.
Yeah.
The differentiators only cost, perhaps.
No, the quality.
Yeah, the quality and the cost. But this is what everyone says.
Yeah.
But they all do the same thing. There's no differentiator, and this is where we need we need people to you try, you fail, but I think it's okay. With this government you can fail. With this government we'll create the environment so that each time you fail, you feel more impassioned to get it. Believe me in that. So I think even management companies, we have to be different. We all can't just say, okay, we incorporate companies, that's all that we do, and we administer them. Like we were saying, there's no one who's a specialist in the bond market, for instance. Maybe the big ones, maybe the Apex or these guys, but we need to move up the value chain. That's the other message I want to give to all of you here today. And government will provide the necessary ecosystem and support for that.
So
One more question, maybe two last questions.
Just the last one. As you well said about the entrepreneurship and the local SMEs to promote it so that the local economy will grow. As I'm from the event management background, since 13 years we are doing international events. I think we are the only company in Mauritius for now who do the international exhibitions, the consumer shows in Mauritius and other part of the world. Previously in 2012 when we started, till 3 years, it went very well. There was no changes, the government was very friendly at that time. And they are promoting the exhibition. Not only, I'm not talking about the general shows, but in a larger scale. But then in 2015, the rules came up and the Ministry of Commerce put up the markups that you can do the maison theme, you can do the jewelry theme, you can do this theme, you can do this theme. So you are governing basically the businesses not to flourish it, because now we don't have any wedding theme for now.
Right now in the Mauritius, as if we are talking about the wedding destination, but we need to do the wedding events so that the people from from India, from Dubai, from other countries, from South Africa, they can come here. And wedding is not only about the venue. Wedding is about the dresser. Wedding is about the food. Wedding is about so many different things. It's a very large market. So when we are talking about this, but we don't have any themes. So now, what we can do in the exhibition part is that we are controlled. You can see in SVICC every 2 months there is the same theme: home, 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 home. But okay, for the local, you can see major of the business for the local, those small entrepreneurs are the garments. This is our local boutique people. Everybody, even the ladies who want to do the business, they go to India. But now, in their own shop at their one place, they cannot grow up because they don't have any big platform like go to the Bagatel and pay the big rentals. So what they do previously, they come to the exhibitions and they sell it. And I personally know more than 100 and 200 SMEs like this, those who just started from the exhibitions and they create their business since 2012. I'm talking about that time, in 3 years of span, they really did through 2 million, 3 million of business. So that's how the economy grows in the small market area, where the entrepreneurs can work it out. But now we can do only one exhibition in a month. Like, I don't know about the rules. I know that this is not your stream, it is a part of the Ministry of Commerce. But just to close with, that in January, February, we can do the events, like an exhibition, even the B2Bs. It's the same thing for that. You cannot do in March, you can do in April, you cannot do in May. I don't know about these rules, why these kind of rules are here. Even we do in South Africa, we go to Kenya, we go to Myanmar and other countries, Seychelles also, there is no such kind of rule. Even the governments bring us, they tell us that, okay, please come, do the events, do the B2B, do the B2C, because that flourishes the market.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I think about it. It's going to be direct and blunt. So, like when we built the Event Cyber City, you had companies from Portuguese that moved to Event Cyber City. There were not many new companies. Now we are building perhaps in Lensco, and you'll have companies from Event Cyber City that will move to Lensco. So one of the things that this government would like to do, you talked about wedding. So if you want to bring destination weddings to Mauritius, you should not be doing exhibitions at SVICC. You should be doing in Delhi, in Mumbai, and then we will help you. I'm not saying we will not promote here, but we want people to be enablers. So we want companies like you who come to Mauritius and do exhibitions here. Of course, you know the local market buys from you, but we are very keen to attract people who will actually bring the destination wedding from India or from Kenya or from London to Mauritius. So we want, that's what I said when I said, let's think differently. Let's move up the value chain. This is what this, we cannot, today you're in Rosil, tomorrow you're in Flac. So you're selling to Rosil today, you're selling to Flac tomorrow. It's the same market. But we'd rather, go to Delhi, do exhibitions there, we'll support you in that. So that's why I asked.
Thank you.
One last question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from the logistics department.
Yes.
Okay, we have been doing lots of projects which the Indian government and the Mauritian government has signed, like metro and ongoing project, and whereby we have signed the LOC and make the agreement with Exim Bank. So now I want to know with the new government if the other project which has been signed, if it will be continue, what the current status for this project.
So watch out in the next few weeks.
Hopefully, because we did lots of good interaction with all these Indian companies. Big
See, the thing is, this government is very group friendly, and we are very open to dialogue.